The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Tonight on Lead Story, we explore the changing media landscape in Jamaica following the closure of Loop News, as well as the winding down of regional sportscaster Sportsmax by parent company Digicel. Media practitioners are usually unwilling to discuss the challenges associated with their own industry, but tonight we seek to do just that. This is Lead Story. You are watching Lead Story. My name is Nika Lewis, and we are being joined by two giants in their fields. We have Ms. Deborah Hickling, Coordinator and Cultural and Creative Industries at the University of the West Indies, and we're also being joined by Ms. Lindsay Madonna, who is the Co-Managing Director of Market Me. We're discussing the ever-changing landscape of traditional media here in Jamaica with the recent closure of Loop and the pending closure of Sportsmax. So you're tuned in to Lead Story. We'll begin with Ms. Hickling. Ms. Hickling, are you with us?
I am. Are you hearing me?
Welcome. So first of all, your reaction to the announcement of the closure of Loop?
Well, it took me a little by surprise. I got the notification early a couple of days ago. It wasn't expected. I mean, I don't think there were any murmurs in the environment. It really kind of signals for me the end of another era or the winding down of another era in media. We've had about 2 or 3 kind of processes of change in media over the last 30 or 40 years, starting with the liberalization years in about the 1990s. So I think it signifies that there's another set of changes that are coming on the landscape for me.
Indeed, because there is now the question of job security in media. Is it a myth? I want to bring in our other guest, Ms. McDonough.
Hi, everybody.
Hi again. So we're talking about the closure, but we want to know now that, based on what we're seeing, is job security in media a myth?
I think job security overall is a myth. But I just think the media landscape is changing so much that there's a rising non-traditional outlet. So I wouldn't say that job security in media, it's not, I just think job security overall, there's no such thing. So
right,
that would be my answer to that.
What about you, Ms. Hickling? Do you believe the same thing, that it never existed really, whether in media or anywhere?
I don't believe that at all, actually. I think that there have been changes over a period of time. I think job security is that people are working in different ways now. But if you take it back to the days of liberalization, after the JBC was closed and then we moved into the 21st century, a number of people started to go independent. So the ways in which media people worked started to change. Everybody had a job in media during the liberalization years. There was hardly any independent individuals. But by the time we came over into the 21st century, people were now starting to become freelancers, and they were starting to become, they started the hustle, and then there were people who were, I remember at the time when I was at between CVM and TVJ, and being a hustler myself, being a freelancer, you had jobs in all of the various stations, but the stations still offered opportunities, and there were some people who still had jobs. And then as we move forward, the process of working for media started to change again, and then we had more people who had started to create businesses and become media entrepreneurs, and then the technology changed again, and we went into the era of COVID and then post-COVID. So I think there are people who have opportunities to work, but in different ways. The issue of having a traditional job has changed, but there are people who are quite secure in what they're doing. Others are not as secure, but you really have to look at the changes in the ways in which people have worked in the last 20, 30 years.
All right,
I would add to that to say is that what I'm saying is that job security anywhere to me is just, there's no such thing, but it's just that you have to continually evolve. You have to move with the times. You have to see where trends are going and kind of stick with those trends. So you just have to evolve as time goes.
Agreed.
And time is indeed going, because we're up on a break. But Dr. Hickling, thank you so much for sharing just now. And thanks to you too, Lindsay, because we're going to be right back talking about the evolution after this break.
Challenges are everywhere and things are constantly changing, but independent living remains the same. Rising above physical challenges, we can help you do it. For years, we have been Jamaica's trusted provider for solutions to improve patient care, safety, and the general quality of life. No matter your age or your physical limitation, we are the caring store, waiting to serve you. It's time to experience independent living.
Living in a systematic adjudication area, it's time to secure what's yours. The National Land Agency is distributing titles under its systematic land registration program. Persons in St. Elizabeth and Manchester, visit the Junction Guest House in St. Elizabeth to collect your title. In St. Catherine, we're coming to you house to house. To collect your title, bring your government-issued photo ID. If someone is collecting on your behalf, they should bring a JP certified letter and their government-issued photo ID. For more information, call 876-750-5263 or visit nla.gov.jm. One agency, one goal, committed to serve you better.
Are you ready for something mega? Megamart's giving away a brand new 2025 Hyundai Tucson. Second prize, a mega shopping spree. Third prize, 30,000 monthly shopping spree. Okay, break it down for them.
Spend $6,500 or more before GCT. Fill out the entry form on your receipt. Drop it in the box. That's it.
Authorized under Section 53.
Welcome back to Lead Story. My name is Nika Lewis. I'm joined by Dr. Deborah Hickling and Lindsay McDonough, and they are giants in their own rights in relation to culture and media in Jamaica. So before we went to the break, we were talking about this evolution that we're seeing in media, but someone who was intrinsic in that process and who understands where we're coming from and how we've gotten here is Dr. Hickling. So Dr. Hickling, if you could school us, especially this generation who might not have been so privy to the details of the times, we saw where Jamaica moved from a JBC-centric media landscape to one that is so diverse now, where we even have people doing their own online streamings and online activities that were classified as media activities just the same. So can you just walk us down memory lane and to show how the shift has taken place in the Jamaican landscape?
All right. Well, prior to 1997, there were two television stations, CVM and JBC. JBC was a public service television service, which meant that it was state-run and government-owned, and it was therefore receiving subventions from the government. From the 1980s, there was a process of liberalization, which really just meant that the government had started to provide licenses for private individuals and groups to come in and have television stations, and out of that came the whole cable issue. It also matched up with the same time that cable and wireless and the monopoly for cable and wireless ended in Jamaica. So there was a period of liberalization taking place. And then after that, as we moved into the 20th century, the whole media landscape kind of changed. So there was now CVM and TVJ. It was called Super Supreme TV before that. And they changed the name to Television Jamaica. At that point, now many of us lost our jobs. So I was working at JBC at the time, and I had to go into tourism because there were at that time there were no jobs available, and then we became independents, and then we had to learn about entrepreneurship because as producers in those days, producers only created content. We didn't have to do the business of television. So we would be responsible for the creation of our television programs, and that would be it.
Significantly different from what we see now.
We had to pivot. We had to learn. We had to learn now how to become business owners, or even when we moved into steady jobs, things had started to change towards a marketing ethos. So marketing was making decisions where programming used to make decisions. A lot changed, and then things advanced up into the years of COVID, where everything crashed, and of course that was another era of change where issues of digital disruption and streaming, the technology changed, the convergence happened. A lot happened in those years, and we'd need a lot longer time to kind of unpack some of those things. What I find interesting is that media doesn't talk about media. So these issues about the changes in media are very seldom discussed in terms of its relationship with issues to do with labor. I suppose it would be difficult to talk about yourselves based on the challenges that might ensue for your personal. But even then, There was a time in the JBC era where people were fearless, and I suppose again it's a change in the economic times and ideological times where people spoke up and spoke about things that were happening in the media landscape. But things and times change. But I think it is curious to me that the media landscape does not speak about the issues to do with media in the way that it should, based on the influence that media has on society.
I want to bring in Miss McDonough because she has a raft of clients, I gather, and she's also been listening keenly to what you've been saying. So one, do you share these views, Lindsay, and also walk us through what your expected role is typically in integrating your clients into traditional media and the new forms of media. What are the expectations even?
Well, I will say is that Jamaican clientele is a lot different from an international clientele. The Jamaican clientele, I think, still really believes in traditional media. There is a role for it, but I also see the move to more digital. And in terms of digital, it doesn't have to be recognized like established media houses. So it may not be, unfortunately, a CVM or a TVJ, but they're more looking to podcasts, to blog shows. And I think why that is that there isn't really a thing of mass marketing anymore because of the pop-ups of these digital platforms of social media. You can kind of target who you are speaking to. So I think that's where the change kind of is that we're not just targeting and going, okay, I want to be on CVM at sunrise, but they may just say, I want to be on X podcast because that is my direct audience.
Yes.
So that's the kind of shift that we're seeing. Where there are a lot of concerns is that obviously with the rise of digital media, the rise of all of these platforms is that I think fact checking is kind of through the roof right now.
I want to take you on more on that, but we're going to pick up on it right after this break. Thanks so much, Ms. Madonna. Stay with us.
Is paving the way to becoming a republic or future or choice. The time by the Ministry of Legal and Constitutional Affairs is
6. Welcome to our place, where your imagination can blossom into something amazing.
Where you can get tertiary level education at a practical level.
Where you can be as creative as you dare.
Harnessing cutting-edge technology.
To create world-class entrepreneurs and critical thinkers.
Where even lecturers gain benefits from our experience.
Your place is the Vocational Training Development Institute, where tertiary level education and training is empowering and transforming lives.
You belong here!
This July, the world turns to Jamaica
for the Caribbean Investment Forum, the region's premier investment event.
From July 29 to 31, the Montego Bay Convention Center comes alive
with global thought leaders, exclusive investment opportunities, high-impact deal-making sessions.
Are you ready to invest in the Caribbean's future? Book now at CaribbeanInvestmentForum.com.
Let's shape a smart, green, connected Caribbean. July 29 to 31, Montego Bay. Powered by Caribbean Export, Government of Jamaica, Jampro, EU, CARICOM, Republic Bank, and ID.
Welcome back to Lead Story. We're talking about the changing media landscape amid closures here in Jamaica of some media houses. And we have two guests online, Dr. Deborah Hickling, Coordinator of Cultural and Creative Industries at the UWI, and Lindsay McDonough. She is Co-Managing Director of Market Me. Welcome back, ladies. Before the break, Ms. McDonough had been sharing with us the expectations of some of her clients, who are many, some international, some local, and she was even touching on the disruptive nature of what we're seeing now in the form of blogs and vlogs and all these creative channels that her clients may be inclined to. So fill us in, market it to us now, Ms. McDonough.
Well, I'd just like to say I have amazing clients, you just brought them up. No, but I was speaking about just the rise in blogs, is that a lot of people are moving away from traditional media and they're consuming a lot of digital media. And the good thing is that a lot of the traditional institutions have pivoted and they are now online, which is great. However, there's also a rise in people consuming their news or even information. I wouldn't even go as far as news. I could even use myself as an example where a lot of times if I want to research something, I may go on TikTok to find other personal stories of people sharing their personal stories about certain topics. But with this rise of everybody having an outlet, in other words, that everybody has a voice through their online platforms, there's this rise in misinformation. And then there's also a rise in that everybody takes things as gospel. So because X said it, and then I find also is that there's a lot of these blogger sites. There's a lot of, I even say it now in this political landscape now, is that they're the rise of these bloggers, these rise of these online shows, and people just have an outlet to say anything they want to say. And it depends on who the end user is. If they aren't fact checking things, we're taking things as gospel right now. So the landscape has shifted and there's not a lot of fact checking and people have to kind of do their own fact checking. So
I want to bring in Dr. Hickling, because where does traditional media stand in relation to this rise of vlogging, blogging, misinformation, all of that? And what role do you ultimately expect traditional media to play? How do we compete?
I think it puts traditional media under pressure to ensure that they maintain the responsibility of the journalistic standards that they had originally signed on for and that are expected of them through their organizations. I think we have to then ensure that traditional media is the place where you can go to get the information that is verified and verifiable. The challenge with that is that with kind of these fakes and misinformation comes a kind of salacious excitement that some individuals get out of providing some of the misinformation that they do, because it's exciting to hear the sus and the gossip and the ways in which some of this information is delivered, and traditional media does not have that they're not able to deliver in that sort of way that maintains a level of interest, so it basically it's a give and take, and traditional media finds themselves in a position where they have to maintain standards, but they may find themselves losing audiences because they're not able to deliver in the kind of exciting ways that individuals are now wanting to see and wanting to access.
But even so, to add on to your point, the trust in traditional media is also very, very low now.
Oh,
it's very, very low. So
explain that a little more.
I agree with that. And I think, it's an interesting thing too in comparison to the digital media, because what happens is that depending on where you get your digital media, that person has usually taken a position. Yeah. Exactly. And they, whatever that position is, they've taken a position and they're moving from that position. So you can identify with that position or not identify with that position. Traditional media does not have, is not at liberty to do that. And so the issues of trust come where they feel there is a feeling that traditional media isn't going far enough to unearth or to criticize or to,
because everything is more surface and factual. They're not diving deep, No.
Yeah, so there is this feeling that traditional media is not doing enough. But I think traditional media is bound by the standards that have been set by their organizations, which is another thing. Individuals who are involved in the kind of user content making, they are working for themselves and they are earning bells and whistles and all sorts of interesting things. But, they're not collecting a salary at the end of the month from an organization that, is providing that and has particular expectations. So taps and roses and those.
I want to bring in Ms. Lindsay. Ms. Lindsay, your understanding of how artificial intelligence known as AI is factoring into all of this blend of salaciousness and misinformation and whatever else exists out there.
Boy, the AI thing, because people are using AI to create videos. Indeed. They're using AI to create articles. And they're being able to generate content so quickly, at a scale. So I think there's a lot of ethical questions around that have to do with AI, especially in media. And I just think that space is still evolving.
Yes.
But it does play a big role. I mean, that you can look on some videos online and there are interviews, and sometimes you have to wonder, is this real? Is this AI? So there are a lot of ethical questions right now around AI. I'm actually interested to see how AI is going to continue to build out, because the truth is, on one side, it's very useful. It's very useful if you use it correctly. But then, like with everything, it can be abused and it can add to that salaciousness, as you had said.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask you, ladies, firstly, the Press Association of Jamaica, is there a role for us? I say us because I'm a member, but is there a role that we ought to be playing in all of this? And what would you perceive the critical role to be?
Deborah, I'll make you go on that first.
Well, absolutely. I think there's always a role for a professional organization. And I think, again, it's all about standards and the maintenance of standards for the media. The challenge the only challenge that I really have always had with the media is the media's inability to criticize itself. And honestly, sometimes, it's an organization that kind of, encircles their own, and that's fine. I mean, that's why it's there. But I think there needs to be a kind of level of objectiveness. Objectiveness. That's ironic. When it comes to the issue of the defense of their own, because there are times when the media has questions to answer.
It would appear that, we're not quite seeing eye to eye on that one, Dr. Hickling, because there is objectivity within the media landscape. It is just that perhaps you would like to see more of certain critical comments and articles, etc., around issues impacting the industry and its players, right?
I will accept your framing, but I'm clear about what I mean. I think that there are times when the media, and I've had discussions with many different, senior editors and so on about this. There are times when the media can take a more critical look at itself in terms of moving forward. But also to ensure that they are maintaining the standards that are traditional and have been traditional for since independence.
Understood. Dr. Hickling, thank you so much. I want to bring in Ms. Lindsay for our final 15 seconds.
Well, read the Press Association?
Yes.
I mean, I think that you guys' role is just more important now than ever. But it's just understanding that role is evolving. Because I know that the Press Association has always been focused on new standards, on ethics, defending press freedom. But I also